Alrighty. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Ask Us Anything with TMDSAS Support. So we are the TMDSAS Support team, and we'll be helping you guys throughout the application cycle to answer questions and just kind of be there along the way to help you out with anything that you may need. My name is Sulima Melendez, and I am the Communication Specialist with TMDSAS. Here we also have Catherine Slagle. She is a no, not the Communication Specialist, Application Specialist. She's also part of the TMDSAS support team. And I'm sure you already know Enrique Hasso is the TMDSAS Director. So welcome to the entry year 2023 application cycle, which will open next Monday at 8 a.m. Central Time. So I'll have Enrique help me out with questions and Catherine as well. Catherine will be behind the scenes, making sure that all those comments are coming in. And if you have any questions at any point in this session, feel free to drop in your question in the chat. And we'll go ahead and get started. But first, before we open it up for questions, we're going to just quickly go over a couple of resources that are out there to help you throughout the application cycle. So let's go ahead and get started.
And Sulema, how do people submit their questions?
Oh, yes, we are on YouTube and Facebook Live. So you can go ahead and enter any questions that you may have in the chat. Okay, so first off, we'll talk about communicating with TMDSES. So as a current applicant, you now have a preferred method of communication that we have for you all, and that it will be in the TMDSES application portal. So at the top right-hand corner, whenever you create your account, you'll have access to your inbox, so your internal messaging inbox, and that is again, the official mode of communication with TMDSES. So you'll send a message, we'll respond back, usually within a two business day window turnaround, so it's pretty quick. And throughout in the application cycle, we do have a team that works on answering those messages for you. And then you will also receive a notification via email to let you know that you have a pending message from TMDSAS. And then again, I just want to reiterate that this is the best way to communicate with us. If you need to make changes to your application, this would be the best way to communicate that to us because we do need those changes in writing. So if it's already in your portal, that is the best way to have those changes readily available, as well as if you do have questions with working on your application and completing it. If you have a specific question on a section, we can go ahead and take a look at your application since it is connected to it, as well as your question, and be able to better help you out with that a lot quicker. And then we do have Team DSAS support resources to offer you all. The first is going to be the Team DSAS application guide for EY 2023. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that I can go ahead and show you guys what that looks like. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and it's embedded in the tmdcs.com website. So on here, you'll have, on the left-hand side, you'll have all the sections in the application. And so you'll go through those. Let's say that we're going to go with select schools. It'll give you a little bit of information about special assured programs, early decision programs, and the different requirements for that, how to select the schools that you're interested in applying to. So this is kind of a step-by-step. Let's look at coursework. That's a very lengthy section, but this gives you the step-by-step of how to enter the coursework, where you can have like EP credits, dual credit courses, future plan, future coursework, and how to make changes to that as well. The other resource that I want to share with you all is the Inside Health Education Newsroom. So here at the top, you'll be able to see upcoming sessions that are scheduled to go live, so such as this one, and future Team DSAS office hours, which we'll talk about briefly. And then here, you'll just be able to see the newest articles that have been published, other news that are happening, whether with JAM, Team DSAS, or Texas Health Education Service. And then I wanted to point out to the Team DSAS support tab underneath. It gives you the office hours that are coming up next and other articles and videos that are related to application tips and things that you need to know about the application. And a specific article that was recently published is a to-do list to help you all prepare for the upcoming application cycle. I believe Catherine is already dropping in the links in the chat, so that one should be coming up next. But this is just kind of a quick rundown of what you will need to know and have in order to start your application. So definitely we recommend that you look over the EY 2023 application guide. Again, it goes through step by step on how to correct that. The high school transcript, we do not need those, but it is best for you to have those just at hand in order to fill out the class rank, graduation date, etc., and SAT scores, official college transcripts, and other things that are important to have at hand. All right, and then Catherine, if you can go ahead and link the other links in the chat for our YouTube channel, that is the best way to be up to date on course sessions and TMDSAS office hours that are coming up. And speaking of the office hours, I want to quickly talk about those. But before that, we'll go ahead and talk about the statistics dashboard. So this one's an interactive dashboard that has information about statistics from past application cycles. If you wanted to see, for example, how many dental applicants matriculated as a reapplicant with a specific GPA, you can look at that. And we'll go ahead and drop the link to that as well. And then the TMDCS office hours are weekly live Q&A sessions hosted by us to be able to address frequently asked questions throughout the cycle. These are happening every Monday of this upcoming application cycle at 1 p.m. And we do have a schedule of those coming up in May. So on May 4th, we'll have a session with the podiatry school, as you all know, UTRGV. And then May 9th will be, again, like a welcoming to you all for the EY 2023 application cycle, just briefly answering y'all's questions, as well as on the 16th. On May 23rd, we'll talk specifically about entering coursework and show you guys a live demo of how that looks like in your application. And then on May 31st, this one will actually be on Tuesday because we have Memorial Day the previous Monday. And so we'll talk about specifically the reapplicant and non-traditional sections in the application. So I'll go ahead and exit out of that. And now we can open it up to questions that you guys have in the chat. And I do see that we have a couple. So let's see, which one should we start off with first, Enrique?
Oh, your choice. We're going to hit them all.
Okay. Let's go with this first one. English is not my first language, therefore I took ESOL classes, so English second language. Do I have to put those classes in the PCR? I got a grade and they had credit hours. So it sounds like these are going to show up on your transcript, so you'll definitely want to make sure that you add these into your application in the college coursework section. However, these courses are not going to be coded as an English prerequisite because it would not count as a prerequisite because it is an ESOL class. All right, and the next one is from Kaylee. Do you have to take the Casper exam individually for each school you want to apply to, or can you just take it once and send it to different schools? I believe some schools require the Casper, not all of them, so you'll definitely want to make sure that the schools that you're interested in applying for do ask for a Casper, as well as be on the lookout for a deadline for those, because those may vary as well. Enrique, do you want to add anything else to that?
Sure. So the Casper is taken as a single test, and then the scores are transmitted to the member institutions that require them. Uh, I do want to note that the Casper exam for the medical schools is different from the Casper exam for veterinary schools. So, Catherine, if you could drop us a link to the next steps after applying section of our application guide. We actually have some instructions about the Casper exam so you can learn a little bit more about how it works, getting registered for a test date, as well as learning a little bit more about what the requirements are on your end. We often hear that you don't have to do anything to prepare for the Casper, but from the feedback that we've heard from our member institutions regarding Casper, you definitely want to make sure that you spend some time in coming up with improving your pipeline of putting your thoughts to words and entering those into the Casper application. It's a situational judgment test, which means that you are just encountering a ton of different scenarios and then asked to put your ideas into the chat uh, boxes. And so it's really important for you to be able to, unlike what I'm currently doing right now, to be able to actually eloquently put down your thoughts into the actual Casper exam. So that is a skill to learn and to make sure that you have down prior to actually going into Casper. And again, as we mentioned, if you go, and thank you, Catherine, for sharing the link to the next steps after submitting section of the application guide, we have some additional information there about Casper, as well as the member institutions that require Casper. Off the top of my head, both veterinary schools and the majority of our medical schools will require Casper. However, no dental schools require Casper for this next cycle.
All right, well, thanks for that in-depth insight, Enrique. I'll go ahead and move on to the next question. Is there a question asking if you are non-traditional applicant on the application? And if so, what is the best criteria for this?
Yeah.
Um, I know that there is a section in the application where you can fill this out if you identify as a non-traditional applicant. And I think Enrique is actually the best person to talk about the second part of this question.
Sure. So in the TMDSAS application, it's actually self-selecting whether you are a non-traditional applicant. The reasoning behind that is that if we were to restrict it by a certain age group or by specific different scenarios for a person's background, it would exclude a lot of great information that this question has been collecting on behalf of the myriad of experiences that you all as applicants have. And so it's actually in the education history section of the TMDSAS application where you go in and indicate whether you are a non-traditional applicant. And when you do select that you're a non-traditional applicant, you get 1,000 characters to talk about how being a non-traditional student has impacted your journey. And so by having this question, it eases a huge disadvantage that our non-traditional applicants previously had, which was that they were using other sections of the application to talk about their journey overall and all of the impacts that happened because you were a non-traditional student. And so by having this question, it kind of helps you separate that from the rest of the applications. You can actually use it to talk more about, what we would typically expect, your experiences and your motivation to pursue a career in these health professions. So again, if you take a look at the application guide, you can take a look at the prompt at the bottom for non-traditional applicants, and it's 1,000 characters that you're allowed to use. So you determine whether you are a non-traditional applicant, and we will, and that question will pop up in your application.
Yep. All right. Let's go on to the next question. And what is considered a underrepresented minority? Enrique, I think this is for you as well.
So, underrepresented minority is actually a term that is put together by, I believe it's the AAMC that came up with underrepresented in medicine. And this is a group made up of different racial groups that are underrepresented in the career of medicine. Similarly, dentistry and veterinary medicine have also adopted similar terms, and so at TMDSAS we use the term URM, underrepresented in medicine or dentistry or veterinary medicine. And so these would include applicants who are Black or African American, Hispanic, or of Native American or Indigenous descent. And this is not necessarily something that is a section of the application is very difficult. So for example, it's part of the demographics section. As you're completing that, it's very much like the census or like a typical application that you completed to go to college. And so what our schools are able to do is take a look at that information. There are some institutions that do not allow for or have removed race from consideration in their evaluation of applicants. And you definitely have the ability to take a look at our courage sessions where we actually discussed underrepresented minority student status.
All right, thank you, Enrique.
Sure.
All right, the next question is from Max. Does living abroad slash attending lower school abroad qualify me as a non-traditional applicant? And so we kind of touched on this in the answer that Enrique gave us, but pretty much if you identify as a non-traditional applicant, whatever you believe that should be, then you can certainly address that question and just give more information as to your story, your path, and what living abroad or attending this school abroad meant to you. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I think the heart of identifying as a non-traditional applicant is, do you have life experiences outside of what a traditional student might be encountering? Definitely living abroad might open your eyes to different experiences. Uh, Having started in a different career path would definitely be someone in those experiences. Somebody who has a family that they are raising alongside with exploring this avenue is definitely a group that has different life experiences. So pretty much if you are exceptional in terms of the life experiences that you've had, regardless of age, you should definitely look into identifying yourself as a non-traditional applicant. And of course, if you currently are enrolled at a university, you can definitely identify whether you're a non-traditional student, and that directly would translate into the application as well.
Yeah, and we actually have an online community for non-traditional applicants. It's a Facebook group and it's like a support group. It's very active and I recommend joining that. So, Catherine, if you can just drop in the link for that group. And Catherine is pretty quick with these links, so.
Yes, sure. And in fact, Dr. Ryan Gray, which, hello, good to see you. Thanks for joining. He's actually one of our members in that group
Mhm,
and offers some great insights. And again, the non traditional pathway is as diverse as our applicants. And there are so many different pathways to walk, but it's really helpful to know that you're not alone in this process. And so this is one of the reasons why we developed this group, and we have folks like Dr. Gray from admissions officers from our member institutions, health professions advisors, and uh, other folks in a pre-health community that are there ready to help. And just to make sure that this point is driven home, we did actually host a workshop for non-traditional and military veteran applicants. If you're interested in taking a look at that, check out the Inside Health Education newsroom, or here on our YouTube channel, you can go through our video library.
mhm. It didn't happen that long ago, so it will be on that list. And I'll go ahead and move on to the next question. So bioengineering classes are still okay to be accepted as biology classes prerequisites. I heard that there are some changes in the TMDSAS for engineering majors. So there is a couple of changes that are happening for this EY 2023 cycle. I can go ahead and tackle this question. Just because I received confirmation about this particular section. So if an engineering course is on the course listing, and Catherine, if you can go ahead and drop that link for the course listings page. But if there is an engineering course that's already listed on that page, it will be coded as under the section where it falls under. So if that engineering course, let's say, appears on the statistics prerequisite area for that page, then it should still count as a prerequisite and still be included in the BCPM GPA. All other engineering courses that are not listed on the course listing page will be will need to be coded as an engineering, so ENGR, and will be included in a separate engineering GPA. And Enrique, let me know if I missed anything.
Nailed it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go ahead and move on to the next question. But Chris, thank you for bringing that up. Next question is, I am applying next week after my junior year. Is it okay to still finish some prerequisite courses in my senior year? Yes. So most often than not, we do have applicants who actually apply after their junior year ends. So they still have a whole year's worth of completing those prerequisite courses. And most of the TMDSAS member schools do want you to have those courses completed before you matriculate, and that is before you start school. Typically, most will want you to finish those prerequisites by next spring, so spring 2023. So that way, the start of summer or fall 2023, depending on the start date at that school, you already have your prerequisites ready and to matriculate.
If I could just tack onto it, all of our schools will require that your prerequisites be completed prior to starting and matriculating. And I just want to point out the prerequisites are the minimum requirement, education requirements for these professional schools. Many of our applicants will take additional coursework beyond the minimum prerequisites. If you're talking about maybe you didn't take the English course earlier on in your undergraduate career, I think it might not be as big of an issue. But if you're looking at taking, let's say, chemistry as a senior, that is part of a longer sequence. So I have some kind of questions, Sriti, regarding your pathway. Of course, the best person to discuss your academic preparation and which courses you should be engaged in would be your health professions advisor, as they can help guide you through the different sequences that are required at your school, and most importantly, which additional coursework beyond the prerequisites that can help you be a more competitive applicant.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So definitely take advantage of a pre-health advising office that is located in your school, because it will be the best point of contact to help you plan those courses out throughout the rest of your career and whatever is left of it. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next question. Uh, okay, I can already tell this is a very common question that we get actually. So, I don't take the MCAT till late June. Is that considered late? What can I do as I wait for the score to help with having my application completed sooner? Thank you. So, to answer the first part of your question, I actually want to let everyone know that you don't need to have your MCAT score in your application in order for you to submit your application. You can actually go ahead and submit it without the letters of evaluation and your MCAT or DAT scores. And once those are released to TMDSAS, then those will then populate into your application as we receive them. These typically take about 36 hours after they've been released for us to have them on your application. And typically, June is a pretty popular time to take the MCAT. You definitely want to make sure that you have it completed by September 10th, I believe is the date for this cycle. But definitely in September, that's the last month or last MCAT test date that will be accepted for this EY 2023 application cycle. Okay, and we'll move on to Alan's question. I know it sounds a bit weird, but I'm curious if anyone has ever applied to both medical school and dental school in the same cycle. And it's not a weird question. It actually does happen. It doesn't happen too often, but sometimes we do see a couple applicants who apply to both dental and medical school. Just make sure that you pay, take a note of the letter requirements. For dental applicants, you do have to have one of your letters of recommendation by a dentist. For medical, there's not a specific requirement for who needs to have your evaluation, but just keep in mind that difference. And I believe some of the activities, or no, the activities should be the same for those as well. But yeah, just be on the lookout for those key differences between dental and medical, but you can definitely apply to both with one application.
Yeah, this was actually a kind of a point we briefly touched on during the dental schools panel last week with some of our dental schools. I think with the medical schools, they're a lot more competitive, so they might not encounter this as much. The dental schools are certainly competitive, but the pool is a little bit smaller. And so I think you need to consider if you're applying to both dental and medical school at the same time, how will you address the question of knowing that this is the correct pathway for you? You went through and took the MCAT and took the DAT and have shadowed both physicians and dentists. And so, how can you communicate to an admissions committee that you are committed to a certain pathway? Uh, that being said, we do have applicants that apply to multiple member institutions. TMDSAS does have a flat rate application fee of $200. Whether you want to apply to one or all 21 member institutions, it's up to you. But just work with your health professions advisor to develop a plan to help you make sure that you are ready to address some of these questions.
Thank you, Enrique. That's a good point. So I hope that helps, Alan. I'll go ahead and move to the next question. Okay, so during COVID, I had to change my OChem to pass fail, so I am taking it again in my senior year for grade. Is there a place in my application where I can explain that I am taking OChem again? So the first place that I can think of is the planned coursework section. So in your college coursework section, you will be able to enter um, or actually it's the planned enrollment, I believe. It's where you'll be able to enter the additional term. And in college coursework, I forget you have to work backwards. College coursework, you can then enter the placeholder for that OChem class that you will be taking in your senior year. And again, it's just communicating that in your application so the schools know that you are going to be taking this course, even if they see the pass fail. And just so that way they know that you're going to retake it again. And I did want to mention that with pass fail during COVID, so the schools are aware that those courses during the spring slash winter 2020 through spring 2021 will probably have a pass fail or credit or no credit for prerequisites, and that's okay because they understand because of COVID, this was an option for a lot of students. So just know that I might get too far into this, but pass-fail courses may not will not show up in the PCR, but if it is labeled as a prerequisite, it will still count towards those hours.
Yeah, and for
Mhm,
that, we'll call it the COVID year,
mhm.
when schools were still trying to figure out how to offer classes remotely. There, for again for the spring, summer, and fall 2020, our member institutions agreed to accept pass-fail coursework to fulfill the prerequisites. They will not show up on your PCR, but the schools are aware of that. For spring 2021, that's when our schools kind of took a little bit of a shift. And at that point, you uh, could only, or pass fail coursework for prerequisites would only be accepted if it was the only uh, option available. And some of our member institutions uh, have indicated that they would prefer to see a grade starting that semester. So if you do have specific questions around that policy, please reach out to the member institutions you're looking to apply to. And I do have a quick addendum to my previous response, if I may. I mentioned that you could apply to one or all 21 member institutions. That is still correct, all under one price. But Catherine has spoken to me from the beyond and made sure that I emphasize that you cannot add schools of a different type after you've submitted. So make sure that if you do want to apply to all of the schools under TMDSAS, you do so before you submit your application. Thank you, Catherine.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. Of course, I thought about that, and then I just moved on to the next. Anyway, that's why we have Catherine. Okay, let's go on. Hey, if I have to retake the DAT after submitting my app with my old DAT score, what should I do in order for the schools to get the new DAT score? So this is a common question as well with the DAT. So all scores need to be reported in your application. So once you know that you have a new DAT that you are taking again, then you just make sure that in your application you do have that future test date. So that way, whenever you release the scores from that new DAT test, then we have that score, that placeholder for the test date, and we are able to receive the score properly. Otherwise, there might be a delay with that. And I quickly just wanted to mention that if you have your MCAT or your DAT exam and you have to make updates or changes to those dates, please do so as soon as possible in your application, or let us know in your messaging portal because that is very important. For those for the test sections, you want to make sure that you have your date of birth is correct on your application and your account for either the MCAT or the DAT. The test day is correct, and your DNT PIN number or AMC ID number. Make sure those three components are the same on both your application and your account. Otherwise, you could run into some delays with that and it showing up on your application. But I think Enrique had, I think I got most of this question. Yeah. Okay. We'll move on. Okay, the next question is from Ray. Where can we find the course listings for dental school? I'm not able to find any dental schools on the course listing. So this is actually a good question. Sometimes we do get this confusion, but actually the course listings is for the institutions that you have already attended, typically undergraduate, community colleges. So this course listing is not to see which courses will the dental medical schools accept necessarily. It's more of a reference guide for you to see the courses that have been taken at your institution and which ones have been classified as prerequisites. And I think we already have a link in the chat for that. Um, but let's see. Yes, I think we already have the link in there. But if not, Catherine's on it.
That she actually just provided maybe about 11 minutes ago.
Okay.
I did want to take advantage of the topic of course listings and prompt the question, what does someone do if there isn't a course listing for their school?
So that is a good question. We always want to emphasize that because you don't see a school on the course listing, it does not mean that there's no way that you can apply or that that school is not accredited, or it just means that we do have a lot of schools out there in the country, so it's really hard to have all of them in the course listings page. However, if you would like to have your pre-health advisor get in contact with TMDSAS so that we can provide a course listings page for your institution, your pre-health advisor can send us an email to info@tmdsas.com, and we can work with them to create that course listing page, as well as, again, going back to your pre-health advisor so that way they can help guide you and assess your courses to see which ones will you can anticipate to count as prerequisites. Typically, a piece of advice that we give is to take a look at the general biology requirements for a biology degree plan at your institution, and those courses that are outlined are a kind of a good way to see which courses will count as prerequisites. But definitely get in touch with your pre-health advisor for help on that. All right, and let's go to Dave's question. I have taken the MCAT 3+ years ago and plan on retaking it this June. Do schools see the scores that have expired or just recent ones? Um, Enrique, do some of these expire? I don't quite remember if they do.
Yeah, so in general, your MCAT scores will not expire. However, uh, if you are looking to apply, your MCAT scores have to be under 5 years old for TMDSAS's requirements. However, there are some member institutions, I'm going to call out Baylor College of Medicine as the first one that came to mind, that do require that your MCAT score be 3 years or newer. And so, in this instance, if you took your MCAT 3+ years ago, that still works for Team SAS. However, for Baylor College of Medicine, they might require you to take the MCAT again to have a more recent score on file.
All right, thank you for that, Enrique. All right, the next question. Hi, friends. Hello. Thank you for hosting. Do you know if the University of Texas at Tyler Health Science Center will open for applications along with the rest of the schools, or will it have a delayed application open? So actually, it is coming up, right? It'll be included
Yes,
in UI 2023, and
it
you'll be able
will.
to apply.
It will. However, we are waiting for them to join to receive their provisional accreditation And until then, they will not be accepting applications, so they will have a delayed opening. However, we anticipate that they will be coming along this summer. And at that time, what we'll do at TMDSAS is that if you are currently working on an application, we will notify you that you can add UT Tyler as one of the schools that you would like to submit your application to. And if you've already submitted by that time, we'll offer you some additional instructions that you can request that UT Tyler School of Medicine be added to your application. And that is done at no extra cost. Again, it's a flat rate application fee. And I think that helps with another question that we had earlier about whether you can add schools after submitting. Absolutely. Uh, there he is. Uh, Absolutely, you can. And you can also withdraw your application from schools. So you can add or remove schools all the way up until the deadline.
Okay. What if your student attended out-of-state school for undergraduate, for undergrad, and during that time, CR, credit, no credit, was taken in spring 21? That university was not yet offering in-person classes. Texas resumed much earlier than others did.
That's an
Uh,
excellent question.
yeah.
Do you mind if I take that one?
Yeah, go ahead. I was
Yeah.
just about to point it in your
Yeah.
direction.
Again, these requirements are not going to be a one size fits all because they were uh, this was a tumultuous time just all across the board. So if you did attend a school that did not return to in-person classes by spring of 2021, do not fret. If you took pass-fail courses in spring of 2021, it is still possible for those courses to fulfill the prerequisites. And our schools are aware of which institutions started back in person. The important part is that the pass-fail courses uh, after that spring 2021 uh, are then becoming questionable because by spring 2021 courses may not have been fully virtual, or may have been back in person depending on where you're at. However, pass fail courses were still given as an option, but uh, a lot of students had to opt in for those. So if there was no graded option, pass fail is fine. If there was a graded option, the schools prefer to see the grade. That's what the requirement was. So not so much that the classes were back in person, but whether the pass fail was taken when there was an option to receive a grade for that course. That's what our schools are concerned about.
All right. Thank you, Enrique, for taking on that question. Let's see. And let's see if we have any additional questions. Again, if you do have questions, go ahead and enter them into the chat so we can address those for you live. Let's see. And Magnolia says, that answers my question. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Glad that helped.
So, for those of you that are watching right now, how many of y'all have taken a look at our brand new application guide? This is a new resource. We revamped our application handbook to make it more of a guide on our website. So, if you've already taken a look at it, let us know in the chat what your thoughts are. We are constantly going to keep developing this as a resource for you. In the coming months, we'll be adding some multimedia like videos, guiding you through the different parts of the application. And we'll be dropping in some of the important resources like episodes of the office hours, FAQs that TMDSAS constantly receives here at the TMDSAS branch of the office, as well as anything that could be of assistance to you. So Chris here mentions that they printed the old one. So yeah, that is one of uh, the perks of the previous one that we couldn't translate over to this new one. But hopefully this resource is really going to help transform your experience with working with the application. So because of this, we're now able to link specific sections of the application back to the application guide. So once the application opens a week from today, you'll be able to take a look at specific sections and guidance from the application guide. So we're really excited for that resource. And of course, lots more to come.
Definitely. And another thing that I wanted to go ahead and mention was that we also moved around and shifted a couple of pages on the website. So hopefully you all find that a lot more helpful this time around if you are a reapplicant or if you are a new applicant for this EY 2023 cycle. Hopefully that helps you navigate the website as well and be able to find the information that you're looking for. And for most applicants, I did want to point out that most of what you will be looking at would be at the Explore tab and the Apply Now tabs at the top of the Team DCS website, because that will have the information that you will most likely need right now as you are working through your application when it opens next week. And we did have a couple of questions that came in as well. So I'll go ahead and show those on the screen. Could we have the application open and work on it with our health advisor next to us? I'm not sure about this one. I haven't received this question before.
Absolutely. This isn't a final exam. It's open book. You have the application guide next to you. If you have a health professions advisor that wants to sit next to you for, I believe we saw like an average of 16 hours to complete the application, more power to you. But this is definitely not something that we would monitor on our end. So yeah, use all of the resources available to you.
And we have another question. If postbac is done to increase GPA, do medical schools look down upon it? So the answer I would say is no, because that shows that you are still working on your coursework to increase your GPA, and they do notice the upward trend in GPAs in your application. So if, for example, your freshman year, you didn't have quite so well GPA, and that could have been for multiple reasons in your personal life or academic. Um, Professional or in anything like that. And then you continue to increase your GPA throughout each of those terms. The schools definitely do notice that upward trend. Enrique, anything else that you would like to add to that?
I think you hit it right on with a discussion on upward trends. With TMDSAS, we calculate over 100 different GPAs, and that includes specific prerequisites. For example, there's a biology GPA, a biology lecture GPA, biology lab GPA. And we also take a look at these across every semester and every grade or every academic year, as well as post-bac or uh, graduate coursework. I'm sorry, my lights are going out. There's a
It's
thunderstorm.
storming.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we calculate so many different GPAs to help our schools really determine what different trends are happening. If you do attend the post-bac program to raise your undergraduate GPA, that's only showing improvement on your end to help be a better healthcare provider for your future patients. So there is no way that a school would look down on post-bac coursework.
Correct. Let's see. And that's the questions that we have so far. And thank you for addressing that one, Enrique. And see, Catherine is so amazing because she already linked the article to a bad GPA, and it's not the end of the world. And so it does go into depth about the upward trend that we were talking about with your GPA and what holistic review is and how that plays into that as well. So again, the bad GPA is not the end of the world. Please don't let that deter you from applying or thinking that you can't do it, because you definitely can. With holistic review, there's different aspects of the application that they review as well. And I wanted to go ahead, just before I forget, Catherine, if you can go ahead and enter the link to the Team DSCS Support Twitter page. I do recommend that current applicants go ahead and follow that page. So this is the Team DSCS Support Twitter account, so we'll be able to quickly post alerts that are going on throughout the application cycle if we notice that applicants are asking a lot about how to enter the specific AP course or why or like how should I classify my activities. We'll definitely be able to quickly provide answers to those questions. And if you follow us on Twitter, you'll be able to get those notifications like right away. And so you don't have to wait until the office hour to address that or have the time to take a look at that if you're not able to find the answer you're looking for. And I also wanted to go ahead, if you haven't already, Catherine, enter the link for the Facebook group for the TMDSAS Hub. So very similar to the non-traditional applicants group. It is kind of a community for current applicants to kind of get together and just have an additional support group there as you all are working through the application together. And if you haven't already, I'm sorry, there's so many links in the chat. But Catherine, if you haven't already, go ahead and enter the link for the Team DSAS member institution contact page. So a lot of times throughout the cycle, if there are specific school questions that need to be directed to the school, such as anything about secondaries, Casper, interviews, or anything like that, you can definitely get in contact with the schools on through that contact page. We do have the information, email addresses, website, phone numbers, etc. And I'll go ahead and start sharing a couple of questions that came in. Let's see. Do schools like Anchornet and TCU do something different? And then follow up with when I select my undergraduate school.
Yeah. So, Alon, this question is a fantastic question. Uh, they do something different, and they use different application services. So we'll start there. University of Incarnate Word School of Osteopathic Medicine is part of the COMAS application. That's the National Application Service for osteopathic schools. And TCU, University of North Texas School of Medicine, actually uses the MCAS application service, which is the National Application Service for Medical Schools. So we'll start there. And if you have any questions regarding those two institutions, I recommend you reach out to them directly and follow them and learn more about their resources. And then, Salim, I think we missed a question earlier
Uh,
regarding course listings.
Yeah, Chris,
Yeah,
thank
here
you
we
for
go.
bringing that up. So as I previously mentioned, we moved a couple of pages around to make it easier to find. So we might have shared the wrong or the old link, but I went ahead and shared the new one. It says new link for the course listings page. That one should be the correct one. And I did want to mention in the course listing page, if you have a community college that you're looking for, take a look at Texas Community Colleges. It's one listing under the letter T. That's because the community colleges and Texas all use the same numbering system. So instead of searching one by one, because it is common for applicants to take coursework at different campuses. So this could be like, I believe, uh, like Dallas Community College District has a wide variety of campuses. You don't have to look up each listing individually. You can just look at Texas Community Colleges under the letter T, and it'll give you the course listings for all those campuses. And if y'all have any questions, again, we are here till roughly for another 10 or 11 more minutes. So if you do have any additional questions, now would be the time. Or forever hold your peace. Actually, no, that doesn't really apply now because we will have the office hours coming up weekly as well. So if you happen to miss the session because you are watching at a later time, we do have a TMDCS office hour session coming up on May 9th. Well, you'll be able to ask any questions then as well.
Yeah, and just in the last few minutes of this AMA, just a few reminders. Sulema mentioned this one earlier, but after you submit your application, uh, you there are certain updates that happen. However, some of the sections of the application are locked. So make sure that you check out the application guide to learn more about which sections are locked and which ones you have to continue to update. And also, the first application submission date will not happen until May 16th. So even though the application opens next Monday, applicants will not be able to submit their application until May 16th.
Yeah, and just kind of to reiterate, kind of on Enrique's point, I did want to mention that one of the sections that I remember at the top of my head that you cannot change after you submit are your essays. So make sure that essays and activities. So make sure that what you enter is what you want it to look like. Make sure you definitely go back to that essay section. A lot of times you've seen applicants who in the description or their chat box they have come back to later and didn't actually come back to it. So definitely go back and review these each individual section, especially the essays, because that will not be changed afterwards. And one good idea that I recommend is whenever you feel like you've completed all of your application, go back and print out a PDF version of your application. You can do that by going to your TMDSAS application portal homepage. Click on the EY 2023. It should be a link if you hover over it. Click on it. If it doesn't pop up, make sure your pop-up blockers are off so that you are able to view that PDF, review it, and also have someone else take a look at it as well. Another extra set of eyes definitely can make a difference because after you've been looking at it over a long period of time, it just kind of just goes over your head. So some new fresh pair of eyes can definitely help you pinpoint any kind of mistakes or uh, spellings or grammar mistakes that you might have overlooked as well. And now go ahead and answer this question that came in from McKenna. Am I able to use the study I did for class credit under research activities? Um, I'm not quite sure about this one. Is this a class that was done for research? Or I don't know, maybe Enrique, maybe you can read it differently than I can.
Yeah, I think what the schools are looking for in this in the research activity section is any experience that you've had with understanding and employing the scientific method. If that happened in coursework, awesome. You are welcome to enter that in the research activities. Or if you did it as part of an additional activity outside of coursework, that is definitely something to add into the section. If your research yielded any presentations or publications that you would like to cite in the application, you are welcome to do so in that section. So you could actually toggle the little check mark that says yes, and it grants you an additional space for you to be able to cite the specific publication.
Awesome. Thank you, Enrique. Let's see.
So we had another question from Al.
Hmm. Oh,
Oh,
all right. The question is, I noticed in U of H medical school class size is small. Is there any news when and if this would increase in size?
mhm.
Enrique?
I don't presume to speak for University of Houston School of Medicine. However, I do know that as a lot of our member institutions have been established and joined Team DSAS, it does take several cycles for them to fully establish themselves and to be able to continue to expand their class size. So that would definitely be a great question for the University of Houston College of Medicine. However, I can let you know that typically it takes several cycles in order for the schools to expand. For example, University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, and Dell Medical School are just now starting to expand their class sizes. And they've been a part of Team DSA since 2015.
All right, well, that's good to know. So that's also a question that helps me also understand. All right, just 5 more minutes. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and enter them into the chat.
While we're waiting for questions, I do want to point out we did have 12 workshops and panels that we hosted for different groups. I can already see Catherine working to get those links to you all. And through these workshops, they're really meant to help support you to understand kind of the intricacies of the application, how our schools take a look at different sections of the application, as well as what you can do to avoid a lot of the common pitfalls or avoid some of the FAQs that can kind of get you out of your groove from getting your application through and processed quickly. So make sure that you take advantage of watching those resources. All of the recordings are available on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. And then, of course, take a look at the school panels that we hosted last week. when we brought our dental schools together, our medical schools together, and of course our veterinary schools to address all of your questions. We had a lot of great points from how holistic review comes into play to how specific to certain specifics about how the interviews will work for this next cycle. So there's some fantastic information for you to know as an applicant getting ready to apply.
All right, and we did get two more questions. I think those will be the last ones for the session. But one of them is from Albert. My first school closed, so would those classes still count? Enrique?
Yeah. So depending on the circumstances for that school, there might still be opportunities for you to collect a transcript since those were courses that may have been engaged in while the school was regionally accredited. They would still be entered in the application. However, send us a message to info@tmdsas.com and we'll be able to work with you on a one-on-one basis so that we can better understand your situation.
Right. And the question from McKenna, does the app service allow us to update our grades as we complete the fall and summer semesters? Yeah, so this is a section, college coursework in your application that you are able to update as many times as needed all throughout the cycle. And we actually do encourage you that you please update your grades as you finish and complete those courses for those terms. Anytime that you update your grade to a letter grade, you can actually do this yourself, so you don't need to ask us, or you should be able to do it on your own. But if you're not able to, let us know in the message in your TMDCS application portal. But as soon as you update your grade to a letter grade from NY, which is not yet reported, then that does update your GPA, does update any deficiencies that you may have on your PCR as a result of on that pending grade for it to show up on the PCR. And once your application is transmitted and you update those grades, your schools will automatically get those updates as well on their end. So it's very important to keep up with that, so that way your schools are always aware of what grades what courses you've completed and which ones are still pending as well. All right, so I believe that's it for now. Like we mentioned, there will be other opportunities to ask questions live through the Team DCS office hours. That would be the best way to learn more about specific topics that are being addressed in our questions every week and have that information so you're able to finish the completion of your application as well. All right. So I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much. Any last thoughts or messages or anything that you want to say, Enrique?
Always, always.
Okay.
I think what I want to convey here is that here at TMDSAS we represent 21 member institutions, and each one is fantastic in its own right. But together through TMDSAS, we have a really great partnership with our member institutions, and that is meant to help support you as the applicant to make this as easy as possible. If there's anything that our team can do to help you along this process, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to help you. Again, we have so many resources that we've published, both on the TMDSAS website as well as the Inside Health Education newsroom to support you. Take advantage of all of these resources. And again, if there's anything we can do along the way to help support you, don't hesitate to reach out. And all the best of luck to everyone. I know you've each been working for so many years to get to this point, and now it's knocking on your window to start your application a week from today. And we could not be more excited to be of service to you on your journey. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, Catherine's computer's frozen.